Hello and welcome to another episode of the Disruptive Dialogue. My name is Thomas Cotton. I'm also the founder and CEO of Redemption and Advancement Alliance. We're in our series of brokenness, mending brokenness, and today I have Eric McKenith with me. Eric comes from a background of a single mom raised who thought she was the mother and the father, or she had to be the mother and the father. He's an ex-gang member from Los Angeles, California, formerly incarcerated for 26 years for the charge of armed bank robbery. He's been out now for about a year and a half and has been living and walking in his purpose ever since. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Man, it's a pleasure. You know, we got a chance to meet a few months ago and immediately we hit it off and really being able to share some stories and history together. Man, your story is amazing and I'm grateful that you're here with us today. You grew up in Southern California just like I did. And, you know, as we started to learn more about each other, you share some things about life and we're talking about mending brokenness. So would you describe your life as being broken as you're growing up?
Well, absolutely broken and a life of missing pieces as well. You know, I grew up without a father in my household, and that was a major piece to miss as a young man or a young child. So yes, I will describe it as brokenness. I was broken because my home and my family was broken.
A lot of people can relate to a broken household, not having a father in the house and the different challenges, but yours has a different level to it of brokenness. Something you just recently learned about your father and not having a father in the house. You want to share a little bit about that?
No, absolutely. So just a few weeks ago, my mother told me, she was venting and trying to clear her conscience, and she told me something that she held back from me for 48 years, and that was the fact that she was raped by my father the night that I was conceived. So yeah, and that not knowing then, but knowing now, as I look back, that had to play a major part of my brokenness and affected me. And not only did he rape her, but throughout her pregnancy, because she tried to make it work with the man that she was having a baby by, and throughout her pregnancy, he abused her physically, mentally, and spiritually, and that affected me as well, because I'm a believer that when a child is in the womb, it takes on the energy of the parent. Whatever the mother is going through, that child takes it on. And it was a lot of negative energy within her household, trying to make things work with my father and everything he was putting her through. And that affected me in a sense. And it also affected, my twin, who's not here because he died during birth, but it affected us in the womb of my mother. And
So, if I understand correctly, your mom was trying to make a relationship work with this person, but
yes,
it was just abusive, and even while she was pregnant, he was abusive to
absolutely,
her. So, you know,
absolutely.
there's this brokenness that takes place even before you were here, and
Hmm.
that you got a chance to experience. So now that you have this start, and this is the way it is, and you ended up in a situation where you went to prison, I'm sure in between that time, there's a time where you had bigger dreams in life,
Well,
but the brokenness kept getting in the way. Can you share a little bit about what that looks like in your life?
yeah. Well, growing up, I grew up in Watts, California, in the Jordan projects, and as a child, I had these dreams of being an athlete, like a lot of young men. But baseball was my sport. A lot of people don't know that I would have excelled and probably went to the major leagues in baseball because I was just that good as a child. However, you know, I I I dealt with peer pressure in the Jordan Down projects. A lot of guys coming at me wanting me to game bang, but I avoided it for so long, Thomas, because naturally I was a good kid and I really wasn't trying to get involved with that lifestyle. So my mother did everything she could to protect me from it, even moving me to another neighborhood in South Central, which was off on Avalon, and that's when out of the years that I fought against not game banging, I end up succumbing to that peer pressure, and mainly because you know I looked at it as I was missing brothers and sisters. Another example of brokenness because I didn't have those siblings in my household to, grab hold to and use for my support system or, just to even play and talk and communicate with. So I end up going and joining my gang at the time. And, I think that's definitely a result of the brokenness within my home.
Yeah. The examples that we have around us, that matters. It makes a difference,
Absolutely.
especially being an only child. I was the only child. I had people around me, but I was still only child.
Yeah.
It's one of those senses that, you're not alone, but you feel lonely kind of
Yeah,
thing. But then you
absolutely.
start getting around, the
Yeah.
gang and everything else.
Yeah.
So now you're in a gang. How old were you when you joined?
I was 15. 15
Yeah.
when I joined and still impressionable at that age because going back like I didn't my father wasn't there to you know educate me or enlighten me on certain things, so I was easily to be influenced and impressed upon, and you know they got me. And I like to
Yeah.
say they because it's like it's crazy because being in these environments, it's like you're going to succumb or you're gonna have to run. And I stopped running and I succumbed to it, and and I became that environment. You know, I became that environment.
Yeah, you're a product of what you're around all the time. They always talk
Absolutely,
about, look at the five closest people around you, and that's going to show you who you are. And a lot
absolutely.
of times, if the five closest people you're around all the time, are in the same environment, you're going to become a product of that environment. Or,
Yeah,
like you said, run. So now,
absolutely.
I'm pretty sure the idea of getting accepted into this environment, to this, family sense,
Yeah,
of people. Now you have this mindset, you have these rules, you have this way that you have to be. You know, did that change you from who you were, the kid that had all these dreams, to something else?
absolutely. And I like to say this because I look at it like this. So I wasn't a gang member before I became a gang member. And just like you practice anything else, I practice being that game member and I practice becoming good at it. And when you practice something so much and so long, you become that. And I
Mhm.
actually became that. And then not only that, but you're listening to people who's, um, motivating you, or should I say, just pumping you up to become this person and saying you're this and oh, homie, you put in work and this, that, and third. That fuels you to make you want to put in more work or become even more, and
Right.
sadly, I fed into that, and I fed into that because when you're broken, going back to brokenness, and you're empty, you need something to feed you, whether it's negative or positive. And that's why they say be careful what you feed on. And I fed on that negativity to fill that void in my life, to to make up for that brokenness. So therefore, when you become this, you're not thinking about the fact that you're broken. You're not no longer thinking about the fact you're empty because you're feeding on all this negative stuff that's around you, the activities that gang members indulge themselves in.
Yeah. Today's episode is brought to you by Redemption and Advancement Alliance, whose mission is to provide innovative support to people to disrupt the cycles of incarceration and poverty. Go to www.redeem-advance.org to find out more information or make your $1,000, $100, $10, or even $1 donation to help support people who want to stay alive and free. Fast forward a little bit. We know that all this madness is going on in your life. Man, you
Hmm.
took a big turn, like one you probably never expected to take. Tell us how, what led you into that, just really quickly, and then we'll look at how you went through that, and then where the transition took place.
In regards to the federal time that I
The
done,
federal time, the 26 years that you
okay,
had to,
because
yeah.
before I went to the feds, I ended up doing 18 months in state prison.
Okay, so you did 22 in juvenile,
I
18
did
in
18
state.
months in state, got
Uh
out
huh.
for 11 months, and ended up catching my federal charge.
So you did
And
40 months total before you even did your federal
before I
charge.
even got into the 26 years,
Right.
it was just it's a cycle, and I got caught up into that web of one of the homies being in and out of prison. And a lot, it happens to a lot of us. If we don't change our mindsets, it's going to continue happening. So I got out of state prison with the same mentality that I had before I went to state prison. But this time when I got out, my neighborhood was known for robbing banks. And so I got out and I got straight with the program, and end up, you know, they came and got me. The federal government, they came to get me and snatched me up out of my house. And this was the day of the Million Man March, October 16th, 1995. I tell people they figured this is one black man that's not going to be marching on D.C. today,
Right.
And they came and got me. And, going through the court system, I went to trial, myself and my co-defendant. And we ended up getting found guilty to 10 counts. It was 4 counts of armed bank robbery, 4 counts of 924C, which is using and carrying a firearm in the commission of crime, 1 count of conspiracy, and then 1 count of unarmed bank robbery. And so we end up getting 84 years. They gave us 65 years just on the 924C charges, which is, an enhanced penalty. 14 years for the actual bank robbery, 5 years for the conspiracy. We end up getting acquitted on the unarmed bank robbery. And, so after going through courts and everything, they sentenced us to 968 months, which is 84 years. And I started off, sent me to Lompoc, which is where I
So
started
real quick
off.
before we jump into Lompoc,
Yes,
so the
sir.
924C
Yes.
gun enhancement.
Gun enhancement. Yes, sir.
So for a gun enhancement, you got 65 years.
Yes, 5 years for the first one, then 20 years for each additional. And that was back in 90. I got sentenced in 97, I believe. Because, we fought our case for 2 years. So, and they don't do this no more, but it even went to 7 years for the first one and 25 for each additional. So Donald Trump signed the First Step Act in 2018, which said they can't do that no more. They can't stack the guns on you no longer, and so yeah.
So that's crazy that, the commission of the crime, what you used for that crime was what got you the most time versus
Got me the most time. The actual
versus
crime.
the crime itself,
Absolutely.
right? The
Yes.
non-victim part of it, the
Yes.
possession of it. So bottom
Yeah.
line is these gun charges could have stood on their own if you would have got caught with firearms, multiple firearms. Do you think that, not in the this commission of the crime?
Yes, to the commission of crime.
Right. But as an ex-felon, could you have gotten charges just for possession?
Oh, as an ex-felon, I think it's a minimum of 10 years just getting
Right.
caught with a firearm.
Yeah.
It's a minimum of that. These gun laws is crazy.
Yeah, they are. All right, so
Yeah.
now you're in Lompoc. How you feeling? United States Penitentiary, Lompoc. Now, Lompoc used to be a USP, which is one of the higher level federal prisons. Now it's a medium high. But now you're there while it's still a United States
Yes.
Penitentiary.
I'm there when it's United States Penitentiary, and I'm there like not even a year after a CO had got murdered there. So the tension is high both with the COs and the inmates.
Yeah.
And I was 24 when I hit Lompoc.
So you hit Lompoc in 97. Was it summer of 97?
Yep, June 97.
June 97. I left Lompoc January 97.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
it's like the understanding of what the culture was in USP Lompoc is something else. It's not, people think of federal prison as, Club Fed or something like that. But the reality is federal prison was prison. I remember, my second day there walking down the hallway and seeing a guy running down the hallway after someone with blood just coming,
Yes.
like a stream of blood out of the side of his head because someone sliced him with a razor.
Yes.
And, that kind of stuff. And, being in the TV room and someone walks in with the sock full of batteries and just bangs
Oh,
someone upside the head, and
yes,
just
yes.
all these other things
It's a
that
horror
yeah,
stories. Yes, a
yeah,
lot of horror stories, and just well as I know, as soon as you hit the yard, your car, your homies, they giving you some here, take this knife, like, and
right,
that's when like, wow, I'm in one of these environments for sure,
right,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
So you're going through this whole process. Let's kind of fast forward a little bit. You get in there, solitary confinement. Did you ever have any time in solitary?
Oh man, I did a lot of time in solitary confinement, like a lot of time. And you know what's crazy, Thomas? And we can go back to this brokenness because I remember, and it dawned on me one day. I'm in the shoe, in the hole, and it just dawned on me because I just wonder why do I feel more comfortable in the hole? Then I thought about when I was in juvenile hall, when I went to the hole, how I handled it without a question. And then I started thinking about when I was a child, my mother's husband at the time, after she finally got the courage to leave my father, she ended up marrying this guy. And every time she would leave the house, he would either make me get under the bed or lock me in the closet. You know? And when I started thinking back to then, it's like, it's crazy how that brokenness, that environment of brokenness, end up being a strength for me when I was faced with solitary confinement.
Yeah, yeah.
It's crazy. It is crazy. Yes.
So now did you do years? Do you think in solitary
Oh,
confinement or
so
months?
I left Lompoc and got shipped to USP Marion for assault on staff, and I was under investigation on some other stuff. Then I ended up getting assault on staff while in the hole, and they sent me to USP Marion. USP Marion at the time was just like ADX, but just ADX was just a step above.
Yeah. So
Where
ADX, for those who don't understand, is administrative.
yeah,
What's the X for? It's the highest level of prison
of,
lockdown that
yeah,
you can have. Uh,
absolutely, absolutely.
so yeah,
And they created ADX and like Marion and just made upgraded. That's how they upgraded Marion by creating ADX,
right.
which made it a higher security. But I'm in Marion and I'm locked in my cell.
And Marion's in Illinois, right?
It's in Illinois, Southern
Right.
Illinois. I'm locked in a cell 21 hours a day. They let us out for 3 hours to rec, to pull ups, push up, dips on the range, on the tier, and shower. That's it. I spent 6 years and 10 months under them circumstances.
Man,
But
almost
all I
7 years.
came out of the cell for 3 hours a day.
And
Yes.
that what you said right there is the amount of time that I last spent in prison the whole time.
Yeah.
You spent that time inside solitary,
Lockdown.
inside the lockdown.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes.
when did you finally start getting your thoughts together and addressing your brokenness? Because there has to be, what's your first steps in the healing of your brokenness? Because this to this point is crazy.
Yes.
It's
So
like,
USP Marion.
yeah,
USP Marion during that time, I had a couple good brothers on my range or my tier that was passing me books, helping me educate myself on who I was as a person, who I was as a black man, and who I was as a human being. So I started reading in USP Marion, and that's when I started discovering that I had issues, I had issues deeper than I could understand at the time, and it took for me to really get into myself and started studying myself as a man, as a human being, to where I realized something was wrong. I was broken. I was empty. I was lacking that love, or just lacking probably even God. Me knowing God, because you can't heal properly until you know the source. You
that's
know,
good.
You can't heal properly till you know the source. And so once I discovered the source, and once I started, communicating and praying and meditating, is when I started to heal. But I can say I don't think I'm completely healed. I think every day is a healing process. Even now, because of the trauma that I've been through, I'm still healing. Just 3 nights ago, I broke down. Thomas, I didn't tell you this because we haven't really talked. But 3 nights ago, I broke down. I was just sitting there because my mom's staying with us right now while her husband is in the hospital. So we didn't want her to be at her home alone. So she's there, and I'm just watching my mother, and I had a breakdown. I had a breakdown because I affected my situation. Being incarcerated for all that time affected my mother more than it affected me, in regards to it aged her, it caused her to have nervous breakdowns. And me looking at these side effects, just watching my mother, I had a breakdown. My girlfriend looked at me and was like, "What's wrong?" And I just went upstairs, man, and I cried like a baby, Thomas, because I am still broken, and I am still healing from all the trauma that I've been through. And I'm not afraid to admit that. And I think the first signs of healing from brokenness, you got to understand and you have to accept the fact that you are broken.
Yes. When you talk about that, and we all have things we're overcoming. We still have these thoughts and feelings of everything that we've experienced in life, and yours is probably still fresh and real. And the adjustment to being outside of prison, you spent 26 years straight, and then 3.5 prior to that, incarcerated. So you're 48 years old. That's a lot of your life right there. When
Yes.
you see now that you've gone through all this, and the pain it caused your mom and those who love and care for you, and then your own personal hurts that you went through, and then you look around the yard and you see all these other people who look like you in this place of incarceration, and you see all the brokenness around you, what does that drive you to do?
Oh man, it really drives me, because before you can really help others, it just drives me to continue working on myself as a man, and also working on these young men so that they won't get in their 40s and look back and have to heal from some trauma that they went through that they could have avoided had they just knew my story and story like mine. So, that's why my whole purpose now is just really like, yes, I know my story can help grown folks, but my purpose is these young folks, because we got to catch them while they're young so they won't become old folks that we have to
Right.
talk to about this.
One of the things in this mending brokenness, the people I get a chance to talk to, there's one thing we all have in common that begin to shift things, and that's reading. A lot of
Yes.
times when we think about when we're out in the streets and before, prison and everything else, we never get a chance. We never took the opportunity to read, to understand, to learn. And then when we get that chance to sit down and read and understand and learn, it really begins to enlighten us to certain other things, and you think back at slavery, where they wouldn't let slaves learn how to read, and how that continued to it continues to perpetuate through our communities. And we
Yes.
have to look at our communities, that we have to get to a point where we're learning and we're reading and we're growing. What
Yes.
do you think that would help our young people out, as far as how you engage them, not only with your story, but how to help them elevate?
Oh, absolutely. And it's important that we all know our history, and we all know, the struggles that our people went through, and just to get us to where we are today. And a lot of these young people, they're not reading. They're more interested in what's going on Instagram and these social media sites than, reading and learning about their history, learning about themselves. But the crazy thing about it also is that their parents hadn't even been well read and well educated. A lot of times we've been in prison, and that's one of the things we do in prison. But a lot of people here in today's society, they don't read, Thomas, and they don't know anything about the history. You got a selective group of conscious folks out here. A lot of college students that's conscious, but for just the average folks growing up in the neighborhoods, they not reading no books.
Yeah. So in the few minutes that we have left, there's a couple things I want to just ask you. Like, so now, you're going through this healing process right now, and you understand like where you've been and where you are now as a man. And you look at the hurting youth that are around us. What is one thing that you wish that you can tell people that you would have known back when you were 13, 14 years old that would have made a difference?
I guess I would just tell them that, you know, don't give up as easy. Don't succumb to peer pressure as easy, and know that, you control your own destiny at the end of the day. Whatever you want to do, whatever you want to be, you can do it as long as you apply yourself. Yes, we all come from brokenness, and it ain't always easy coming from up under it. But at the same time, each day, you just want to strive to heal the best way you can, and have a connection with the source, whatever your source is. God, mine is God, Jesus, but whatever you believe in, connect to your source and use that as your inspiration, use that as your strength, and know that you can make it out. I made it out of the darkest time, so I'm sure that if I made it out, a lot of people can make it out, whatever their prison is, because prison doesn't necessarily have to be physically. It can be prison within the mind, spiritual prison or whatnot. Whatever their prison is, they got to know that they can prevail and they can make it out, and they can be anything they want to be in this life.
That's good. I I remember back as you were talking, being in prison, and I don't know, countless men used to always say this, man, I wish I was that square that was out there
Yeah.
instead of the person that's in here, right?
Yeah.
And so you've probably heard it said over and over again in prison that I wish I was that square that was out there. And it's crazy is our brokenness was the one thing trying to break the square. It was, you look like a fool if you're learning in school. You look like a fool if you're trying to be square, or you're trying to be white if you're trying to be straight,
Yeah.
but the reality is we need to uplift that more than we tear it down. And we got to get our culture to really uplift that a little bit more, because
Absolutely.
what we do is we create trauma on top of trauma and brokenness on top of brokenness. And so people who are actually trying to do the right things, we make them feel like they're doing the wrong things versus this is the right way. And I guarantee you, if people could listen to the individuals who are in prison and hear the type of languages that the type of words they speak, we would be able to see that they know that this ain't cool. This ain't where you're supposed to be, but I don't know anything better. So now the last thing I want to end with is, two things. One of the things is you kind of shared where you seek your support and to heal from your brokenness and your trauma, which is your faith first in Jesus. Now, what other things are you doing that can help you heal and move forward, and where you seek help at?
Well, I'm not afraid to lead on my support system and people who I feel that has my best interest. I'm not afraid to talk to them about my problems. And you opened yourself to me a few months ago, and it's brothers like you and of course my lady, that when I'm going through it, I can lean on them, and you all remind me that where I came from, and like I always say, my worst day here in society trumps my best day in prison. So I just lean on those thoughts as well, those quotes and those mantras. But yeah, so it's my support system first and foremost. And you mentioned God. That's who I lean on. That's who keeps me strong and keeps me going up. And of course, my auntie. I can't forget my auntie. She's definitely an inspiration in my life.
Good. So let's close out. What's your purpose?
My purpose. purpose is just to save these young men and also young women just from the cemetery and from prison, you know. And if I can just redirect their visions and for the most part be honest with them and truthful, because my older homeboys growing up fed me with a bunch of garbage. So I want to feed these kids with the truth, and I want to let them know that lifestyle that you're living, that you admire so much, it only leads to two things: death or in prison. So my purpose is to keep as many as the young people out of prison and out of the cemetery as I can, as many as I can.
It's amazing. Stay alive and free. That's what
Yes,
you want to
sir.
do,
Yes,
you know,
sir.
and making sure that people stay alive and free is a big task. It's a tall task that
Mhm.
you're not alone in that fight. There's so many people out there, you know, that want to make this difference, because we know that, you know, when it comes to the future, our kids, they got to see some good role models. They got to learn from
Absolutely.
truth, from experiences. And
Absolutely.
so,
Absolutely.
man, Eric, it's such a blessing to be in this brotherhood with you and watch your life continue to grow,
Yes.
and you know, seeing you get yourself into the positions that you can make that impact, not thinking about, you know, just yourself, or you're being selfless in this fight. And so
Yes.
it's a
Yes.
beautiful thing.
Yes, absolutely. And I appreciate you having me on, and I appreciate the support that you've given me. And I look forward to our brotherhood growing and becoming stronger. Absolutely.
Yeah, much love.
Yes, sir.
Well, everybody, thank you for joining another episode of the Disruptive Dialogue with Eric McKenith. And Eric is there a place where they can find you on social media or anywhere? You on any
Yeah,
Instagrams or social medias?
they can go to Eric_McKenith, McKenith. That's my IG. And That Imperfect Gentleman is also another one of my IG. The website is coming soon within the next couple of weeks. But just follow me on Instagram and you'll be, abreast of what's coming next.
Good stuff. Thank you again for everybody for joining us. Follow Eric on his Instagram. Be on the lookout for his website. We'll see you again next week.